Persons with different forms of disabilities have lamented the non-implementation of the disability rights law in Plateau State, north-central Nigeria. This came to focus at an event in Jos, the state capital, for persons living with disability. Centrals. Well, to discuss this, we're joined by Oluwakemi Odusanya. She's the Executive Director, Eagles Voice International for Disability Rights. It's a civil society organization. Thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure having you. Let's start this way. Yes, thank you. Let's start this way. What specific provisions or components within the disability rights law in Plateau State have yet to be implemented?
Okay, so there are several laws, such as that of the incentive, the healthcare, accessible healthcare, inclusive education, which is very paramount because, the law talks about having free education for persons with disability up until secondary and even tertiary institutes, and this is yet to be implemented, actually. So those things that actually people feel it's not important is very important when it comes to persons with disability. So when it comes to the health, the education, the accessible roads, transportation, so a lot of things like that are yet to be implemented.
Interesting. And talking about these things that are yet to be implemented, what challenges or barriers do you feel are hindering their full implementation?
Okay, so the barrier or challenge could be awareness or ignorance of persons down from the, I'll call it quote-unquote low level down to the implementing partners. So we have the National Orientation and Information Agency who do not, talk about these laws and its ingredients, its components when as with persons with disability. We have the laws, but how many of the MDAs do know about the relevance of the law or even the existence of the law? So the challenges start from there, and also the challenge of, I talked of ignorance right from the policymakers, ignorance right from the government officials. So there are a lot of ignorance that, there is this law, or persons with disability can actually be functional, can actually be, co-partakers of the community development. So ignorance is a major challenge. And when we step into that, we look into the ignorance, the barrier of non-accessible education system, right? So when the education system, shuts out persons with disability from being admitted into various tertiary or secondary schools, it becomes a very big challenge because when you shut them out of education, you shut them out of being inclusive, they go back to the home and become idle. They go back to the home and become isolated. So when these people, go over time and are isolated, it becomes a very major challenge to include them or integrate them back to the society. So the barrier of, accessibility, a barrier of communication, the use of right terminologies for persons with disability, right from either the government institute, right from maybe the private or public sector or the education school as well. So it's a lot of things. We talk about barriers of policies. There is no right policies within the state to say, okay, persons with disability, or to say private organizations, if you can employ a certain quota of a qualified person with disability in your organization, we will support you with incentives. So let's say, I give you an instance, if an organization, ZYX, employs maybe 4 persons with diverse impairment, let's say a blind person, a wheelchair user, and the person begins to think, okay, I'm going to employ you, but it's going to be very tedious for me to cope with you because I don't have enough capital to make you work available, make you work inclusive. So if the government can pick up a policy and say, since you have been able to employ this person, this is a plus to you. So we are ready to support you with the assistive device that a person can actively complement and develop the organization. It becomes very simple and it becomes very easy for organizations or employers of labor to include persons with disability in their workforce.
All right, interesting. Finally, you've talked a lot about this, the issues, especially with disability rights law, but how has the lack of implementation of the disability rights law specifically impacted the lives and well-beings of people living with disability in Plateau State in particular?
Okay, it has actually impacted negatively because you find a lot of persons with disability on the street. You find them, not able to go back to school. And some will tell you that you are educated, it gives you more power. But when the lack of implementation of the policy, either from the national level or the state level, is not there, it becomes a very big challenge for persons with disability to want to further either in the education system or to even want to contribute to the community, because it's either knows the law or is either is included or has a framework to be very knowledgeable and appreciable to want to add value. So when there is lack of implementation of these policies, like let's say the National Disability Prohibition Act 2019 that talks about the 5% quota for private or public organization to employ persons with disability. So if this implementation, when it's not done, it becomes persons with disability needs to hand in cap, has to start begging, because it becomes a pitiable, a charitable model, which is not what we talk about. We talk about the rights-based, the social model, where everybody, regardless of disability or gender, is seen as one. So the lack of implementation really has a very negative vibe and shuts them out of communal participation.
Well, we have a way to go, and of course, you've highlighted that clause in the law, a 5% quota, which I think we need to have more conversation on. But that'll be it for now. Oluwakemi Odusanya, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
And keep up the good work.